Hello everyone, my name is Kyle Downs and this is Abyss Song. I wanted to do a quick little face-to-face section at the start of this video to introduce the new show and the new direction that I'm going with for the channel. I wanted to give a quick mention of the Patreon page that is supporting hopefully where we're planning to go with all of this. If you've come here from real life or you've just found me on the internet, welcome. What I'm trying to do here is just create an open educational forum and place for sharing music and ideas and just a bunch of random stuff, really. So hence the name is a bit vague and all, but I think that it's important that what I believe in is the idea of being a holistic musician. You know, not just being a classical pianist or a university lecturer or a theorist or a composer, but someone who is at home in all of those places, or at least knows enough of those places not to feel completely lost, because I think we all get a little caught up in our little pigeonholes and our own little worlds, and I think there's so much to learn in surprising places that might not seem so relevant to you at the start until you take it and apply it to what is relevant to you, and you might just be surprised how it changes things. So I wanted to start today with sort of an academic exercise more than anything. It's an idea I've had bouncing around for a while, and I just sort of wanted to share it as just an example and a start, you know, so there's at least something up here along the lines of what I'm going for. I'm going to look at a lot more specific things as well as a lot more sort of esoteric things, I guess, as well as the covers and the originals are still going to continue and all sorts of other stuff. There's going to be song analysis and just basically whatever comes into my head that I can get recorded, and all of this is going to be supplemented with the Facebook and the Discord, and there's going to be worksheets and all sorts available through the Patreon. There's a worksheet for this episode already up there. You only have to sign up for $1 or 50. I don't even know if there's a limit. It might only need to be like 5 or 10 cents. I have a feeling it's $1. It's $1 a month, and that will get you access to all of the related worksheets and anything that has anything to do with any of these websites. That will get you access to the composition portfolio, the WAV files, and sort of anything else that they chuck up there that's not the specific rewards that are already there. So if you're curious at all, it's worth a look. But I mean, you don't need the worksheets to follow what's going on here. I'm going to try and be as clear and concise as possible. They're just there as sort of supplementary stuff if you're interested, basically. So don't feel like I'm walling stuff off or that you're going to miss out because you're not there on the Patreon. That's not my intention. It's just a little extra for people who want to go that extra mile, I guess. So anyway, we're going to continue with the video. This is the first in the Into the Abyss series, and today we are going to be talking about scales and intervals. Okay, so let's talk everyone's favourite subject, scales. Yes, we all hate them, we've all suffered through them, we've all sat through exam after exam, having to pull out every inversion, contrary motion, hands together, hands apart. We've all been there. But I think because of this, we kind of forget what scales actually are. And I've kind of made it a point in the last couple of years, because I grew to dislike scales so much, to try and change my thinking to become friends with scales again, or, you know, at least sort of tolerate being in the same room as them, because they are interesting tools to use if you treat them as that. I'm sorry, that gecko completely threw me off then. Anyway, there is a reason that we practice them as well, because they are good for developing our finger technique and all of that stuff and understanding where the notes are on our instrument. But I want to look at scales outside of that. I want to look at scales as a window to understanding music. I want to look at scales in a few different ways. But I first want to talk about scales and intervals. Now, usually when we do a scale, and I'm just going to stick to C major purely because it's sort of the easiest way to see this, because C major has no accidentals to worry about. So at least from a readability standpoint, C major is sort of easier to understand, I think, for all of us. Obviously, if you're coming from a transposing instrument, concert C major might not be such a happy place for you, but hopefully this will be a happy enough center to sort of understand what we're talking about. Now, when we learn scales, we learn them like that. Yeah, whether it's two hands or country motion, we learn scales that way, sequentially, note by note. Okay, so in C major we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and the other way down. So looking at it this way, we can see that we are moving in an interval of a second between each note, either a major second or a minor second. And when we're taught how to identify the notes in a major scale, this is the way we're taught. We call them tones and semitones, or steps and half steps, but it means the same thing, a tone being a major second interval and a semitone being a minor second interval. So in a major scale, we have a major second, another major second, a minor second, another major second, another major second, one more major second, and then we end with the leading tone, obviously, a minor second, back to the tonic. And we're taught how to find the notes of a major scale this way. So we can start on any note, move up, major second, minor second, major second, major second, major second, and a minor second. And then we have a major scale. And that's great within the context of doing that. But what if we took the major scale and looked at it at different intervals? Just for fun. As I said in the introduction, this is purely an academic exercise. It's just a way of thinking differently about scales, and it's just a couple of different ways I've been trying to shift my thinking about scales and to use them in different ways that's not just sitting down at the piano and going over and over and over and over. Okay? Because it doesn't matter how much you love music, eventually that's going to get dull. So what if we take a scale and we play it in thirds instead of seconds? So we go up a major third, a minor third, a major third, a minor third, another minor third, a major third, and we end at a major third. Exact same note, exact same scale, exact same notes, we just change the order after the intervals. So doing it this way, we end up with all of our jazzy chords. So we have our C major 7th, major 9th, major 11, major 13. So if we learn all of our scales in thirds, we've now taught us all of the extensions for each scale. And then obviously if you use a Mixolydian scale instead, which is a major scale with a flattened 7th, that would get our dominant extensions. So if instead we did a Mixolydian in C, which has a B flat instead, so everything's the same except for that B flat here, we now get all of our dominant extensions. So we get dominant 7th, dominant 9th, dominant 11th, and dominant 13th. So all we've done is we've taken that scale and we're now looking at it in thirds. So instantly that's opened up new windows to us beyond just being a finger exercise. And you can still do it as a finger exercise. There's no reason. Now it's a different one. You're using different fingers. Now it's more stretchy. So now you've taken what's more a sort of dexterity exercise and used it into a finger stretching exercise. And we can extend this idea further and further. And in the worksheets, I have taken it through every interval. So through fourths, fifths. I just played the Lydian then. I played the Lydian then because that's where I got this idea from, is I was mucking about with the Lydian scale and trying to understand where the idea of the sharp 4 comes from. For those who don't know, the Lydian scale is a major scale with a sharp 4, so C major. It has the raised fourth on the F sharp. And to me, over the years of working with the different modes and stuff, the Lydian has actually come to be a more stable sound for me. And I know in a lot of ways that probably sounds very strange because you've got that sort of tritone there and everything, but understanding why that exists in the scale, I started looking at it in intervals because I thought, okay, well, we're getting this secondary dominant, we're looking at fifths. What happens if I take all of the notes of the Lydian scale and write them out as perfect fifths? And what I discovered is that every single note in that scale is a perfect fifth, apart from the final resolution from the F sharp back to the C, which is a tritone. Now this isn't all that different from the major scale because obviously we're only changed one note. In the major scale, there's a tritone or a diminished fifth between the B and the F natural, and then it resolves in a perfect fifth. So you get the last, if you have them in fifths, the last 3 notes is B natural, F natural, and then C. There's not a lot of sense of resolution to that, but if you run it in the Lydian scale, there's this lovely little tension. There's that last little C right on top there. And like I said, this is all very subjective and very academic, but it's just a different way of approaching things and thinking about it. And to me, that's really important. Because I know the times that I've lost interest in music or found myself stuck is when my thinking has become stuck. And we can take these ideas of looking at the scale in the intervals and practicing it that way and just seeing what it unlocks. Because running the scale in seconds all the time doesn't teach us all the interactions between the notes that can happen in a melody and happen in a harmony. But if you stretch them out and play them in those intervals, suddenly you hear all of the interactions. You can hear it in the major sevenths. Don't quite have enough keyboard for that. But those intervals we don't usually hear unless we're writing a melody. So we kind of go in, having worked with these scales and having worked with these chords, and we're taught, okay, use the appropriate notes and whatnot, but we've never ever heard them firsthand before. We might have heard them in a song, but starting as a brand new musician, we don't have that knowledge yet to identify what those sound like. But if we take the scale that we're already comfortable with and start stretching it out and twisting it, suddenly we get to hear all of these different little interactions. And another way that I really like to do this, and I use this as the basis for my improvisational teaching, and this is my whole improvisational philosophy, and I won't get into it this episode at all, that's a whole other episode, but how it relates to scales. The way I teach improv is learn your scale, learn it in root position, same way that we always do. So C major, and then in our left hand, we're going to play a C major chord. Okay? We're just going to play the scale over the top. Okay? Now we're going to play the exact same scale, but we're going to start on the second note. Oh, that's painful. going up. And listen to all those lovely tensions. And take it slowly, one note at a time. Hear how each note relates back to the scale. Is it tense? Is it settled? Is it resolved? Does it want to move? Does it want to sit? And if we're just practicing our scales normally, we don't get to hear any of these interactions. And you can do it in the reverse. You can play your scale normally, but play it over different chords. So start with a C, then maybe try it over a D. Let's go. Let's do it both hands. And all of this just from taking something that was so torturous and so basic and just twisting it around a little bit. And that's what I got for today. So there is a link to the Patreon for the worksheet in the description below. Hopefully this was straightforward enough to follow without it. The worksheet includes more information, a couple more scales, and also some sections that you can fill out yourself if you're interested, to help sort of prompt you for maybe a couple of ideas of where you can take this. Please leave some comments with your own thoughts on this. Again, I realize this is purely an academic exercise, and it's probably just 15 minutes of me just rambling about scales, but hopefully it's been interesting in a way, or at least it's made you think of something a little bit different. And, you know, that's enough to make me happy. So I will see you next week, where I am going to start talking about my improvisation philosophies. So I look forward to seeing you then.